This is Rob White, fighting Texas Aggie class of 14 of the RedAss Podcast.
Yeah, this is Roy May. I'm here with Rob. I barely made it in.
From the RedAss Podcast, and we are on the Garrett Smith Podcast, and we're ready to rock and roll and have a good time.
All right, well, howdy everyone. As you just heard, we have the guys from the RedAss Podcast here today, and I've been looking forward to this one for a while because it's y'all hit on a lot of topics that I'm thinking about but don't really ever hear discussed on podcasts or don't really jump into. And for anyone that went to A&M that wants to listen to their podcast, or if you didn't go to A&M and you want to hear about a better school, just jump on there and listen to some good stories from some good Aggs. And I will tell you right up front, they are very good about not being political on their podcast. We were just talking off air about that while we were airing our political thoughts off the air. It's a very respectful podcast, very funny, and I've enjoyed listening to its first few episodes. Although I will say, I realize there is one I haven't heard, and y'all had Billy Lucci on there this past week, so I'm definitely have to dive in and listen to that.
Yeah, that was our latest one. That was, I'll tell you what, that was a lot of fun because we were kind of going to do like a half hour of Luch, and then we were going to do a half hour talk about sports coming back, and he gave us the abridged version of kind of the origin of TexAgs, and that took about 48 minutes. So we talked a little bit about sports on the back half of 10, 15 minutes. But I tell you what, it's a fascinating story, and I know he's told probably the story of the origins of TexAgs in one capacity or another, a lot of different places. But he told me stuff that I'd never heard, and I've been on TexAgs since 2005. And I've had an account on TexAgs since 2005. I always lurked before that, but yeah, you get a chance. It's really neat just to kind of hear how it really started with him, while he was still in college and kind of moving forward and purchasing the company. It's a pretty good one if you're into that kind of stuff. If you're not, then just avoid it like the plague.
Yeah, I kind of avoid the forums a lot of the time, but I definitely follow them for news updates and things of that nature. So I'm gonna have to check that out because love to hear how. Yeah, let me
clarify. I'll clarify. When I say I'm on TexAgs, I mean the premium board and the military board and the Aggie Land board. It's just it's actually a really good source of info for what's going on here around town. I do not go to the politics forum.
Nope, not at all.
I do go. Well, and I do go to the zoo. I started in the zoo, so I'll go to the zoo too. So like old rivalries, Aggie Land, the military, just because kind of core stuff, premium in the zoo. And outside of that, if I'm going to the outdoor board every once in a while, I'll just get some of their threads are just epic.
I would get on there in high school for the old rivalries, especially because growing up an hour and a half north of Lubbock, I'd get on there and just troll everybody I went to high school with. Because for some reason they were on TexAgs. I never could figure that out. But yeah, so you started this podcast up, and one thing I'll tell the listeners here is that all three of us who are here right now kind of had unconventional ways of getting to A&M. It was, Rob, you didn't really grow up with A&M. Roy, you did, and you went a non-traditional route. And for me, I went grad school. A&M was my dream school. There's pictures of me in baby attire watching us play Nebraska, a little baby onesie. But they didn't offer my major. So I was like, well, I'm not going to spend that much money to not get the major I need. So I just went to UMHB, and then as soon as grad school opened up, that's where I went. And that's actually how I met you guys. So I met Roy working with the 5 for Yale campaign back in like 14 or 15. I don't even remember which campaign that was. But it was actually
13, 14. I don't even know.
Once upon a time.
And, I just know. At one point I was a Yell leader. Everything's starting to kind of jumble together these days.
Yeah, with quarantine, I don't even know what day of the week it is, and it's I thought that would go way after a month, but it hasn't. But then I met Rob. I was over at one of the grad student parties, and our friend Kristen was like, "Hey, I think Rob's almost here." I was like, "Cool, I'll show him how to park." And I was like, "I don't know who Rob is." And I walk out, and this car pulls in. He's like, "Hey, am I at the right place?" I'm like, "Well, if you're Rob, you are." So then hit it off ever since then. Almost got kicked out of Minute Maid together, and it's been great. So
oh yeah. The bubble gate, as we still like to call it.
Hey, whatever gets us on TV. But you guys are rolling out some good stuff with the podcast. Tell us about like the shirts and things of that nature.
Yeah, that was kind of Roy's idea to get it started, but he was talking about doing some T-shirts and things a little while back, and we were playing around with some ideas for the actual podcast name. We bounced around a little bit. We didn't see one that was called just a specifically RedAss Podcast, and then we ended up rolling with that. And making some shirts for it. And he played around with a lot of designs, kind of TV references, trying to do some things that are also A&M referenced. I know we've put out a handful of ones already. We have an office shirt. We have one that's referring to, if you've ever been to Blocker, you know that it tends to flood. So there's a nice little poke at that. And of course, what's complete with this particular line, but a set of running shorts with a big red ass on the ass. So, I would say we're probably off to a good start with those.
I don't run, but I need those.
No, they're comfy. We're actually going to run out another kind of different model of shorts, so to speak, like the cotton, what are they, the Sophie or Sophie or SOFFE, whatever those are. But we'll run those out. But I'm not a runner either, dude. Like the Army tells me I have to run twice a year, and I fight it, which is weird because I used to love to run, but that was like 44 pounds ago. But right now there's not much in the store. The way the store works, we kind of touched on this, but in case anybody's actually listening, if anyone's out there, so the store runs on 2-week intervals. So if you order, basically once that interval runs, they do all the orders, they give them to me, and I get them in the mail. So like if you happen to order right at the beginning, it might be 3 weeks before you get what you order. But we'll be adding more shirts. We've got a list of a list of slogans that we're screwing around with. So there'll be more in the store, but they're all kind of comfort-ish colors, but they're real soft. We went with a little bit higher grade T-shirts, so they're really comfy.
That's awesome. I'm definitely gonna have to check that out too, because I don't know, the shorts are cracking me up. I've definitely got to get a pair of those. One thing that Rob and I recently talked about, speaking of items that you want to obtain, is the Aggie wish list. And I think I don't know what picture, Rob, you shared, but it was something to do with maroon end zones. And I was like, if you could pick like 3 or 4, just, we don't need them, but would be cool to have things at A&M, what would it be?
Man, I'll tell you what, at least to get it started. Referring to those maroon end zones, they actually ran that for the spring game. Not obviously this spring, but last spring they ran maroon end zones, and it was just
such a tease.
It looks so good.
It's such a tease to run it for the spring game. Really?
Yeah, they looked awesome, and I was like, man, we need to get maroon end zones. We got the budget, we got money.
Mm-hmm.
Spend a little bit on maroon paint. There's not nearly enough maroon on that field. We've been doing white lettering for years. Let's add a little maroon in there. That'd be at least, the first thing. Secondly, I would say, man, I tell you what I really want. I want to get Texas Aggies back on the Aggie baseball uniforms.
Yeah.
Kind of that 80s style that we were doing the 80s and the 90s for all of you Aggies that grew up with that.
So you want the script and the sleeveless jerseys. You're talking like old school Rocky stuff.
Oh, heck yeah. You bet. I mean, just Texas Aggie cool script on those. I mean, it was a great look. There was no bevel. It looked awesome. That's all we need. Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, I would say kill the bevel, but that gets roped into that a little bit. I would say, if I'm going to give one more thing.
Dude, don't talk about the bevel. That's like borderline getting into political discussion.
Yeah, that's bad.
I'm a pro bevel, keeping my mouth shut over here.
Oh boy,
with its proper use.
I'm not having that conversation either. You might get a political discussion out of me before you get a beveled argument. I'm not playing that game, dude.
Non-Aggies listening are like, what the heck are they talking about?
Man, you think I lost followers for suggesting stuff about the statue? Open up about the bevel. All of like 30 people follow me on Twitter.
Okay, but we'll table that.
I'll leave that one for an Adam Drake episode.
We'll table that because Lord knows he's pro. Yeah. Anyway, but then if I had to give myself one more thing, so with this Aggie Park renovation they're about to do, there's one thing I really want in that park. I want a big musical stage in that park.
Oh, yeah.
Because how cool would that be on game day, where you are scheduling various different, either local bands, bigger bands, and just have that going on in the park before the game. That's free entertainment.
Yeah. I'd love it.
I mean, come on. How cool would that be?
Who was it? The Mug Down or whatever that had like the lazy river going around it at one point.
I thought he was about to say lazy river. I'm not gonna lie.
I'd be down for that too.
No, it's weird. Like You talk about maroon end zones. I want Texas Aggies in the end zones.
Yes, sir.
That'd be cool.
And just big block lettering. It's pretty simple. For baseball, I want Aggie Alley back.
Yeah.
I would love some outfield seats, like left center, right center around the big kind of green monsterish thing we have out there. And I'll just stay in the same vein of those three things you brought up. So in the park that's coming up, I want them to really think hard about putting a pond in there, considering how mosquitoes work in the state of Texas.
So, yeah.
I seriously think about it, from about mid-June until really probably middle of October.
Yeah.
You're going to be tailgating, and I mean, if you can crawl inside the mind of a mosquito, I would think that's a pretty target-rich environment. I get 40,000 people hanging out.
Yeah. True that.
So maybe think twice about that. Either that, or make it some sort of like super chlorinated, almost like a pool water type thing. But then you got to talk about maintenance, all this other crazy.
What is the capacity at Olsen now? I haven't even.
It's about, I think, maxed out. We've had about 7,500.
Okay.
And that's down from where it used to be back in the 80s when you would let people sit in the outfield actively, and they would literally shut down the railroad tracks because people were parked on them.
I love how my graduate institution's baseball stadium seats what my undergrad's football stadium seats.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
So it seems wrong. I just looked it up. That seems wrong. It says 6,100.
Right, it's 6,100, but that's just the seats. That doesn't count the lawn area and standing room only.
Oh, yeah, you know what I want? I want to get rid of the lawns.
I'm down with that.
Yep.
Seriously, put seating over there.
Yeah.
I mean, they've actually talked, kind of staying on that same topic, they've actually released some renderings where they've talked about putting in some seating, basically eliminating the berms.
Just put in bleachers, man. Seriously, I don't care.
Yeah, that's what they're going to do. They're going to create just extended lower seating, and then there's an option for this kind of bowl. I'll send y'all pictures of it, and I'll be sure to post pictures to the podcast Twitter, but it kind of highlights some different ideas, like a bullpen that's underneath in the outfield. There's some kind of underneath seating. It looks like a really cool idea.
Hey, at least we're not building a end zone that looks like body parts in our football stadium.
Yeah, well, they could build seating over the bullpen, like you see in the major league parks that's already existing.
Yeah, that's what they're talking about.
Pretty simple addition. I just looked it up. The record was the SIP game in 2018, a little over 7,500.
That was
awesome.
That was the Homer game, right? Where we.
No, that was 16.
Oh, okay.
Was the Homer game. Now 18. That was just a standard win. Boys took care of business.
Yeah. That home run game, man. In 2016, I just remember I was already on blood pressure medication. I almost had to go back and take an extra dose. I was like, this is not healthy for me to listen to. I didn't have any video feed either. I was watching stat updates and had like Dave South telling me what happened 2 seconds after.
People were getting ready to fight. It was awesome. Holy cow. I was so excited. Texas fans who'd been quiet the entire game, they tie it up in the top of the ninth. Now they're starting to chat, and then we walk it off, and everybody's at each other's throats. It was great.
That's why when people say the rivalry's dead, I'm like, you just don't pay attention to the right stuff.
Nope.
I think my wish list is...
The football rivalry is dead.
Yeah. And yet more heated.
Now,
yeah.
It's in a coma.
Yeah.
Eventually, this miraculous Hallmark movie storyline, it'll come out of the coma and it will save Christmas or some shit like that.
I relate that football rivalry to Guns N' Roses. People always said there's too much money for Axl and Slash not to play again, and for 20 years the ego was like, no, we're not doing it, and then they're playing together. So yeah, it'll happen. It's just who knows when. I think my wish list is kind of petty, but I want more old Sarge imagery back in our marketing. I know that's probably more of a core thing, but I'm like, it was a part of A&M's heart, like, as stupid as that may sound, I've always been like, okay, I grew up, when I was a little kid, I had a little old Sarge stuffed animal. I had like the t-shirt. My dad has the old like trash can, the little aluminum trash can that has him marching with the T behind him. I was like, there's no reason I had to go. They could still mark that. I would have a location in College Station or Bryan, just somewhere close, where Student Bonfire puts their stack. Because I know that's not a school thing, but I'm like, I did not like having to drive out all the way almost to Hearn and then wonder if my truck was going to get stuck in the mud. Because
That's fair.
I'd go to all those. I'm just like, this is not logistically a good spot. One year I had to like sneak in because they were at capacity. So I don't know. I think like a more local place that's more community involved with that.
Maybe something like off of Rock Prairie or something out there.
Yeah.
Like some of those farms right there, right before you get to Tower Point coming from the south side.
Yeah.
Right.
That'd be awesome. It'd be easier to navigate. And when I win the Mega Millions Lotto, I'll maybe build one for them. I don't know. My third one, it always ranges. I kind of rotate out what my third thing would be, but better parking at Northgate might be one, but I don't know.
I would eliminate paid parking over at City Center, but that's my thought, or whatever they call it over there.
I don't know. My mind is going to your stage at University Park. I'm like, there's a lot of opportunity there. Because I was looking at what it would take to pull in a trailer stage and maybe get some bands to play at a big tailgate, maybe get some Texas artists, do some sort of fundraiser. And the rules for live music are pretty stingy and more than I thought they would be with A&M. And I looked, Baylor doesn't even allow live bands at their tailgates. And Texas.
Did you dance on that campus either?
I was going to say, are they even having school dances yet?
I went to the opening game at McLean Stadium, and they had like a little island that was bridged off where you could have alcohol, but it was kind of like a quarantined island of drinkers. It was like
where all the heathens go.
Yeah. Well, they were playing SMU.
Yeah, you actually have to say a prayer to come back across the bridge.
Get baptized in the Brazos first.
No thanks. I'll just go to hell.
Yeah.
I got one more thing actually. And I don't know. This is really just kind of open ended, but you have the polo fields, with Bonfire Memorial, but then you have just kind of all the way to Texas Avenue. That's a ton of room that we're just not using. And like the entire polo field grounds aren't the memorial.
Right.
That's a lot of grass that we could be using for anything. Even intramural fields or just anything. So I'm surprised that has remained untouched for so long. Because gosh, it's been 20 years since Bonfire's been on campus.
Yeah. And I don't know how much of that is an aesthetics thing or... I do love the view of the campus coming in, but yeah, that is a lot of open space.
Well, the view of the campus is really right down the street, though. Because you got the golf course on the left as you're looking at it. So, I don't know if there's stuff that could go out there, but I don't know why there wouldn't be.
And I've always wondered what they're going to do with, out towards like a research park and past where the new agriculture service building is. I'm kind of like, there's a lot of room out there. Now, granted, every time I come back for a game, there's a new building somewhere out there. So they are filling it. But I just wonder how many years it is before that whole area is just filled up with stuff, because it'll happen.
I'd probably guess like 15 years, and you'll have maybe another dozen buildings out there.
Yeah.
And what you're going to see out there probably more so is like research type facilities, because I think there's an obvious need to keep the highly academic buildings, the ones that are really majority classroom, keep it a little bit more centrally located, as opposed to, man, what if you have a class in Coldus and then you have a class, a half mile past Reed?
Yeah.
Right.
So it's, but I could see like research stuff going over there. And then over by the library, what they're bringing in, they're building a hangar for Marine One and that train, right? 41 engine.
Wow. Right.
Those will eventually go on permanent display over there. So that's a lot of room, but that's probably really all that grass out in front of it. Yeah. Maybe kind of where they do all the stuff for July 4th. So.
Well, Roy, you almost got censored just now because I just realized my cussing bleeper from a previous podcast host was still programmed in, and it was timed at a certain point. So we almost bleeped you talking about West Campus for no apparent reason. That would have been great.
Oh, very well. Well, for people that, if you're not ag, vet, or business, right. West Campus is a bad word.
Yeah, I saw there was somebody shared a cultural map of A&M one time. It was like the core, West Campus, the middle. It was like every little engineering, everything was blocked off. But what's funny is like when I was there through grad school, it was always like that was kind of the joke. But at the same time, so many different groups and walks came together for so many different things. That's one thing I loved about A&M that I haven't seen it. Being somebody that works in higher ed, I haven't seen the same amount of unity between social cliques or groups at any other school that I've seen at A&M. And that's a no-brainer because it's A&M. But the fact that it's 2020 and it's still that way after all these years, love that. Yeah. Speaking of how things look and come across, college football this fall. I know Dr. Fauci this past week was saying probably not likely for anyone to play football without everybody getting infected. Vaccine may not be around till January. I don't know, because maybe not on the college level, but I think on the pro level, there's too much money going in not to have some sort of form of football, whether it's no fans in the stands like NASCAR's doing. I don't know. What do y'all think?
There's too much money at the college level.
Yeah.
That's why you're seeing, programs, not necessarily football per se, but just kind of programs in general are having to just shut down sports.
Mm-hmm.
There's a massive money drive in it, and we all know it. I mean, this is amateur athletics as long as you're doing the quotes in the air with your fingers.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a massive driver, and these universities rely a ton on it because, it's not the football program, and it's not like you're going to have less chemistry classes if you only get 2 home games as opposed to 7.
Right.
No, what it is literally all the other sports that depend on football to maintain, the athletic department staying in the black as opposed to going into the red.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
but at the same time, like, dude, you get a different message every 2-3 weeks about what's happening, what's going on in projections. So, I mean, I don't think anybody knows. I think football ends up happening because even without ticket sales, even if you don't get the gate, those TV contracts are still incredibly lucrative, man. What is it, 43 mil from the SEC network? Isn't that right? Something like that?
Something.
SEC.
It's insane. Well, and even the crappier networks, like, they're still paying money,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they're not paying as much as the SEC, but, I'm sure the Big Ten, their splits got to be pretty big. The Big Ten's a
what they're getting from Fox and ESPN's good stuff, so.
Well,
so
they're banking.
So you got to have the sports, fans or not, to fulfill, that's really the TV contracts.
Yeah.
And you want to talk about TV contracts, I'll go on a real quick sidebar. If Major League Baseball really gave a shit about growing their sport, they wouldn't be continuing the blackout rules now that people can't go to games.
Absolutely.
That's exactly why baseball as a whole is dying. Man, nobody cares about Major League Baseball anymore.
Yeah.
And the people that are on the fence when stuff like this happens are like, all right, you know what? Fine, screw it. I'm done. I'm done.
My initial concern was, okay, let's say students are back or they're doing the hybrid half and half model. From a higher ed standpoint, and given that my job depends on keeping students involved, and based on what I've seen that keeps the camaraderie going at A&M specifically, my concern is, okay, let's say some students are back. They let a certain amount of people in the stadium, like I think it was 50% capacity at one point. Let the students have first priority, because let's be honest, in the state of Texas at least, and generally through in the South, and I will even give this to the Big Ten, football is a huge part of the tradition of your school. I don't care how many people say that your school isn't about football. It's there. Enrollment numbers will even indicate it. If you have a freshman class that has zero exposure to what fall at A&M is like, seniors graduate out, suddenly you have a junior class that only had 2 years, a sophomore class with 1 year under the belt, freshmen don't know anything. I mean, it's like you actually have a very limited chunk of students just from one fall that get all the traditions from a fall semester. And A&M can pull through. I don't know how many other schools can pull through with traditions, because nobody's got traditions like A&M does, but there are some schools with traditions. I think a lot of those can fall through.
Well, because you go to other schools, and, obviously, a tradition is we may as well have it all tattooed on our ass when we're Aggies. No, honestly, as much as we use it, it's true. It's because we use the phrase tradition so much because we have so many of them. And a lot of them are football related, a lot of them are sports related, a lot of them are school related, right? So we can have traditions. You can't walk 6 feet on campus without seeing something that has a story behind it.
Right.
But a lot of other schools who aren't maybe like the University of Alabama. All right. Think about all the traditions that go into being a football fan and football season in Alabama. Tell me one tradition about Alabama that doesn't involve the football program. Seriously.
Right. No, you're absolutely right.
Sure. Gymnastics is okay.
Boy, yeah, their gymnastics is an absolute powerhouse.
You
know what? Ooh, that's what I wanted at A&M. I want a women's gymnastics team.
Gymnastics team would be great.
We don't have one? Wow.
No, we have a club one.
Yeah, we have a club.
Oh, okay.
Right. Wow. I want it to be Division I because the SEC and gymnastics, it's like the SEC and Oklahoma are kind of the gymnastics, and we're 90 minutes from Houston, which is literally almost the birthplace of gymnastics in the United States.
Simone Biles, Houston.
Bella Caroli's gym down there. I grew up, during the Mary Lou Retton days. I used to run, like you ran into her after she was, years after the Olympics. She still lives down there.
Yeah.
Gymnastics is huge. And so I'd love to see it because I think it'd be another sport that we'd be just really good at.
Yeah.
Well, and like I said, easy pull because a lot of the girls that actually do go to a lot of SEC schools and Oklahoma come from Texas.
Yeah.
They come
draw.
from Houston. They pretty much come from Houston.
I mean, literally, hour and a half. Bring them on up.
You already be there in a great competition market. You got to do Title IX. So what? You got to add a men's sport, right?
Soccer.
Well, you can, well, I mean, as much as I'd love to add hockey, the reality is geographically you just can't do that because the amount of money it would require for the university to pay for a Division I level hockey program when the closest hockey program to us is not exactly Louisiana. Mm-hmm. And so you figure men's soccer, but it's not in the SEC. So you've got to find something that's moderately regional that they can play. And so then you're like, crap, what? So I don't know, man.
Well, it's funny. I'm actually gonna. I know what my third wish would be.
Gymnastics because the squads are smaller.
True.
You can maybe pull that off money wise.
Yeah.
I think my third on the wish list would actually be hockey because I mean, $5. My wife and I would go to countless A&M hockey games when we were there. It's
so much fun.
Oh, I loved them. Now, unless they were playing Texas, it wouldn't be a huge crowd, but. I loved one of my favorite memories of that whole thing was when we played TU. Lofton was at the game. Some of the Yell Eaters were at the game. I was one of the guys that did the chair race at halftime on the ice. I think it was against Patrick McGinty and it may have been against Chris Powell. I think was the other one that we were racing against. Yeah, they beat the snot out of us. But and through them is actually how I met Roy. So it's kind of funny how that came full circle. But I just remember like the media was there. People drove in from Austin. It was huge. And so when we moved to Temple this past year, one of the first things we did to reunite with some of our A&M friends was we actually went to Austin and watched the hockey game in Austin.
The hockey game.
Yeah, it was a fun time.
I mean, personally, hockey would be my decision, but I'm also speaking from a realistic point of view. Like, because if you go to Division I, you're not going to keep playing Texas because they don't have a Division I team.
Right.
So it's either gymnastics just because the squad would be smaller and it'd probably be easier to afford, or you could do lacrosse.
You could.
Yeah. I'm a huge Lax fan. Love lacrosse.
Huh. The 2 times I tried to go to an A&M game with lacrosse, something came through and I didn't get to go. But, I guess if hockey left Texas to go to greener pastures, it wouldn't be the first time we've left them to expand our horizons.
Yeah, right.
So, based on collective experiences with all the different sports, one thing I've wondered before we got to do this podcast is, given that we're all what I would consider well-traveled Aggies when it comes to road games and different sports and things of that nature, and I'm just kind of wondering, what are some of y'all's favorite and least favorite sports environments you've been in, whether it's for college or pro, but primarily for A&M?
You want to go first, Rob, or you want me to go?
Oh, man.
Let's do least favorite first.
Least favorite environments. Okay, so I know this one's near and dear to your heart, Garrett,
I already know where it's going.
I'm so sorry. 2011, this is easily my least favorite road game I've ever had in my life. I went up to my sophomore year. We played Texas Tech in Lubbock for the last time, and that was an absolute show. Awful. I mean, I guess I've heard stories about the Texas Tech games. People throwing things. The old when they pulled down the uprights and started running them up into the section.
I was at that game.
It was terrible. But so we go in there. This is the last game. They vandalized the team buses with stink bait. They did a bunch of stuff. To kind of give you perspective on where we were sitting, it was me, 2 guys, the rail, and the edge of the student section. I'm about 4 rows back from the band.
Ooh.
So, I mean, well within earshot. And there was a guy who just picked me out. And apparently I was going to be his bitch for the game. He was like, I'm going to keep yelling at this guy. And so what kept happening was every time we would score, because we took the lead and we never relinquished it, I would just kind of look over him and clap along to Hot Time and just sing Hot Time to him every time we would score. As the game was wrapping up, as they started to file out, I mean, there were fights. There were people that were pointing out Aggies in the student section, yelling, get him out, or whatever. I get it. It's college football. People get wild. I think the peak of that particular game was there was a guy who drunkenly took his lid off his drink and poured it on a poor girl in the banned. At which point, a Texas Ranger came running down the section, tapped the dude on the shoulder, made him turn around and said, "You're out of here." And he says, "F you, pig." Now, here's the problem. You don't say that to a Texas Ranger.
No.
This Texas Ranger grabbed this guy and rode him down 6 rows, broke his nose, cuffed him, and was walking him back out. And his little drunk girlfriend was like, "He didn't mean it." It was just like, oh, God. So, anyway, by the end of that game, they started rolling everybody out. We did our little, we celebrated at the end of the game. They said, "Hey, you guys hang out here for about 15 minutes," because our entire section was surrounded by officers, rangers at this point. And I asked what the guys said, "Why are we hanging out?" They said, "Oh, there's a crowd of about 1,000 Texas Tech students just ready to pounce on the outside of the gate. We're trying to disperse them." So that was probably my least, it was a great, intense environment, especially being for the last game. I would say that was probably my least favorite experience, but it was still cool to be a part of that. I would say probably my favorite environment that I've been to, other than that, I would say probably the box for LSU baseball.
Oh, wow.
I have not been there yet. I would love to go to a game.
Oh, my God. You want to talk about, it's an engaged fan base that absolutely loves the sport.
You've been to Starkville?
And they will talk about it with you. What's up?
Have you been to Starkville?
I have not been to Starkville yet.
I was going to say, wow, the box is better, because I feel like Starkville's maybe better than the box. More tradition in the box, but Starkville that place turned into it. So
Starkville is a very nice looking ballpark.
Yeah.
Generally, from what I've heard from people who've been to the games, one versus the other, it's more social hour over at Starkville because you're grilling in the outfield. Everyone's just kind of hanging out, doing their thing. Oh, hey, cool, we scored. All right, now let's get back talking about what we've been talking about.
My language.
It's a family thing, with Aggie baseball, it's always been, hey, there's about 1,500, 2,000 students up in the section that are going to be engaged the whole time, whereas virtually every other place, it's not really that concentrated.
Yeah.
It's more spread out, and it's definitely more social time. But absolutely loved the box. Fantastic fans. And it was great seeing us pull out a series win there. Yeah. That was very cool when we were not expecting to do so. So great experiences for them. Tip the cap to the LSU folks.
Bucket list place, where you want to go next?
Well, he mentioned it. I really do want to go to the Dude for Mississippi State baseball. It looks really, really nice. If I actually had to pick a college football environment, and I might be cheating here, but if I had to pick a college football environment, I really want to go to Wisconsin.
Oh, wow.
Bad.
Ooh, yeah. Yeah, Madison.
I want to go up to Camp Randall, because everything I was seeing from the videos, they're intense. They're very, very much into the game, like the 12th man is.
Wear red.
And just generally a great fan base and a good football team. So I really hope if Ross hears this, I doubt he will, but Ross, schedule a home and home sometime, please. I want to go to Wisconsin so bad.
I will tell you, I went to Wisconsin Whitewater for the UMHB playoff up there back in 07. Their fans made Tech look like Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. It was so vulgar.
They're intense.
It was bad. Yeah, I'll piggyback off what you said now. I think one of the worst environments I ever went in was Texas Tech in 03 as an A&M fan, because we lost by 30 that night. And the game didn't kick off till 9 p.m., but I've noticed, and this is going to sound like a diss on Tech, but whatever. The higher their admission standard goes, the better the fans are, and there's still improvement to be made. But I was when I worked for them as a recruiter, what I realized is there's a lot of parallels you can draw between that school and A&M, no matter how bad neither school wants to admit it. But to me, Texas Tech is like your best friend that is an absolute nightmare belligerent when they're drunk, and you fight, and then you're cool the next day. Whereas I thought they were the roughest environment until I went to a game in Austin. The last time we ever played in Austin. And I had been told, hey, yeah, it's a big rivalry, but they're actually pretty similar to A&M fans. They're friendly, whatever. I was like, okay, cool. They were not. A lot of them were before the game started. The moment we scored first and took the lead, that mood just went bad. Little kids ran up and bit my friend in the arm, and their parents were letting them. It's like, I've had more F-bombs showered on me in that one night that I think my sweetest memory of an A&M victory in person was actually that night. Just walking through Austin, everyone singing the war hymn. We had no idea what was going to happen to us the next year. It was just a savor the moment kind of thing. And so my best worst road memory was probably that one. Baylor was a nightmare, but
that was a cold game too.
It was. Oh, I didn't dress properly. I wasn't wearing a jacket. I froze. But it's, one thing I've mentioned before is I've got a stadium bucket list. I want to go to all 12 FBS stadiums in Texas, and I've only got about 4 left to knock out. I've got a UTSA and the 3 DFW schools left, and my goal has been to figure out, based on their kickoff times, if I can knock out a half at each DFW stadium and get them done in a day.
There you go.
Obviously, and I try to look at them with no bias. I would say my best experience, view, food, all that kind of stuff, like A&M's got the best atmosphere. I'm not saying that because I'm an Aggie. I'm an Aggie because I like the atmosphere. But from a view and the actual stadium itself, UTEP had the best.
It's got to be UTEP.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a great
beautiful
stadium.
I did it the wrong way.
Was that the Sun Bowl out there?
Sun Bowl.
It was there was our homecoming game. They were so bad that nobody even went into the stadium. They just tailgated the whole time. And so I shimmied up the hill, not knowing this is illegal at that point. And I climb up, and I'm up on the mountain. So I'm looking down on the stadium, and I look up, and you can just see the sun going down over Mexico. It was beautiful until they made an announcement to get off the field. And I didn't even try going back to the game. I just got in my truck and left at halftime. But I would definitely say if I could go back to a stadium, Sun Bowl would be it. And that, Texas Tech, you mentioned earlier, it's kind of a soft spot. If you're wearing red and they're playing like Texas or Oklahoma or somebody, and you're just casually watching a Tech game, one of the most fun ones. But I'm kind of with you on the what it's like for someone in maroon, because I've been to about 3 of them there too. That way, not fun. Roy, you've probably seen more territory than all of us.
Yeah, well, I'm actually not as traveled as you'd think. Not like in the state of Texas. So I'll go ahead. I have never been to an A&M game in Austin. I refuse to go to the city of Austin. I have not been. I'm not kidding. I have not been to Austin. Let's see. When did I go? I went because my aunt, she worked on the Hill, and they had like a congressional resolution like passed for me, like in honor of, I don't know, whatever. So I went for that, and that was like 2015. And before that, I went in '98, and that's about it. Wow. No, I refuse. I'm not kidding. I refuse to go to Austin.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I hear there's great barbecue. I hope y'all enjoy it. But yeah, no, I won't go. Not kidding. I can't. No, just everything about the Sips makes me want to just actually throw up and throw furniture. I haven't been to a game in Lubbock just because, like, it's like the Oregon Trail getting all the way up there.
It really is.
It's a minute.
It really is.
And so my least favorite probably experience, I have 2 of them. One was for the place. Well, yeah, one was for the place and one was for the people. Well, actually, the first one's both. So Baton Rouge. Baton Rouge, hands down. And this includes the fact that we went to South Carolina. We had kids trying to get in a fight with one of our yell leaders, like actual fist fight.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Baton Rouge game, my junior year was when it was like cold, rainy. We wore those god awful gray uniforms.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
They look purple.
And so like it was, dude, it was so cold and miserable. My wife and her friend were there. Her friend, like, she was basically numb from the knees down because it was so cold. Like, they left the game early. We had fans, like, obviously fans yelling at us because we're right there by the, right by the wall. But then on top of that, like, yelling like profanities, obscenities at my wife, and like, hey, man, it got real close to there being 4 yell leaders for the rest of the year. Because man, you yell at me all you want to, man. But so yeah, that was a bad experience in general. Just the weather sucked, the football sucked, the people were ridiculous. A couple of tailgates were cool.
Sure.
Like we were walking around, and some of the LSU tailgates, like, they wanted us to come over, and we were in our whites and everything. And but yeah, that was just miserable. Starkville would probably be close just because the cowbells.
Oh, awful.
And that was when we wore the god awful white uniforms. Yeah, I've had some awesome experience with the crap football. And then my other least favorite was really had to do with the fan base. I went to the Sugar Bowl when we played Ohio State that year after beating K-State, the Big 12.
Oh wow!
And it was just the game wasn't competitive. It just kind of sucked. And then like after like the fans were Ohio State people, it's just one more reason for that whole state to drop into the mantle of the earth. And then we can make DC a state, and we're still at 50. We don't have to change the flag. So just get rid of Ohio. If that's your platform, I'm cool with DC being a state. But man, they were just crappy people, and after the game, like they're trying to pick fights with my dad and just being just so lewd and terrible, and so it made it real easy to dislike Ohio State real quick. Yeah. My favorite place to go is probably it's a toss-up between Auburn and Alabama.
Sure. That was going to be my guess. Yeah,
Auburn's pregame and Alabama's pregame are both really, really cool. Yeah. Auburn folks are a lot more like Aggies, but like Bama folks are kind of cool because they don't expect to lose anyway, so they're nice. It's true. Yeah, come on in. Yeah, we're gonna beat your ass. Come on in, have some fun. Yeah, in fact, that was what was that? The 55-0 game?
Oh, I was there.
Yeah.
I don't remember anything past 35-0. I was getting yellow hammered for a
we had there were a group of students that had made the road trip, and they were up in the stands, and we're down 55-0, and they're yelling down to us like, keep doing beat the hell yells and all this. So they were just getting absolute curb stomped, and we're doing beat the hell yells. It was a blast. But Tuscaloosa's cool. I'd probably err towards Auburn though, just as a whole. The whole town of Auburn's really cool. The pregame at Auburn's very, very cool. The people are nice. I'd probably have to say Auburn. My bucket list is tough. Like I kind of want to go to the big house, but people that go to Michigan are a lot like Sips, so I don't know if I really want to go to the big house.
Especially if they're playing Ohio State.
Oh, just stick a gun barrel in my mouth. But I will say it should be on the bucket list for everybody if you've never been, and it doesn't matter the location. You should go to an Army-Navy game.
Oh, yeah.
The tailgates are phenomenal because it's all a bunch of like active duty and veterans, so there are alarming amounts of alcohol, and everybody. But it's a fun rivalry. Like there's nothing truly mean about any of it. Mm-hmm. The march-in is awesome. The game is fun. It's it's a different kind of football, so it is what it is. But to have the core there and all the squids there, and just it's a ton of fun. And I'll go a little further and say if you ever get a chance to go to Mikey Stadium at West Point for a game, same thing. The atmosphere, you up in the mountains around the Hudson. Mikey Stadium is real fun. You got the Lusk Reservoir with the cannons right across the reservoir. It's a lot of fun as long as it's not butt cold,
which it probably is.
Yeah, you need to go to a September game.
Yeah, to hit it early in the year.
Yes, if it's already October 1st, just start thinking about next year.
I love the post that was going around this year during that game, or this past year, where it was like the only game where both sides are willing to die for your freedom, and all these Air Force people got. It's like, are we a joke to you? And people are like, yes.
Yeah, we're all like, yeah, you are. Yeah, you are.
What would y'all rather have for A&M for their first game every year? Do a rotation out of like 2 or 3 of the other Texas schools that we used to play, or the military academies?
Service academies.
Academies would be really cool.
You could do such a cool like pregame with that and halftime.
And I got to be honest, I think you make sure that it's not like a home and home type deal, but I think you make sure that you're every couple of years you're rotating to play there. Now, it's good for them. It's good for their program too. So here I've got a good one for you. So would you rather go to let's say the Red River Shootout was still in Austin? Would you rather go to that game wearing burnt orange, or would you rather go to the Horseshoe and wear Buckeye red?
Buckeye red, because I've never been to the Horseshoe and it'd be a new experience.
Yeah, it's one of those things where like if the Sips were playing Ohio State, you are legitimately rooting for the asteroid.
Right. I struggle during Texas OU. I've been called a bad Texan for rooting for OU.
I do not struggle. That is the one day of the year for about 3.5 hours that I can prove to you that I know every word of the song Boomer Sooner.
It's like they all know the words to the song Boomer Sooner, which is Boomer Sooner. Yeah.
Sooner born, I'm sooner bred, and when I die, I'll be sooner dead.
Well, when you play the song on every down on offense and defense, I mean,
they do need to expand their playlist just a touch.
Like was it the LSU band when we beat them and we were in the end zone like every?
Oh my God!
But at the same time, like think about this, like when we used to play the Sips, every time they got a first down, every single time when I play.
Oh yeah.
Don't do it.
No.
So, but think about how much it just drives you batty every time. Think about how much that must piss the Sips off when they do that.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm kind of in favor of it. Like, that's part of the home field advantage, or just really having even a traveling crowd. Part of it is to kind of piss everybody else off.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of it.
I will say this. I'm so thrilled that the Aggie band, I don't know how, because initially they were talking about sending the Aggie band, if they were going to go, they had to go in full to go march. And I'm so glad that they figured that out to kind of get
common
a
sense
smaller band to
prevailed.
go.
Mm-hmm.
Because it makes such a difference on the road to have the band.
Well, and they did it the right way. It's the white belt band. You know, in the grand scheme of things, freshmen and sophomores need to be home studying, because your home game weekends, you're already slammed when you're in the band. It's an all day event. It doesn't matter when kickoff is. And trust me, I know, because they all used to complain and piss and moan to the yell leaders. Like, man, we've been here since blah, blah, blah. I just want to punch them all in the face. and I love the band. Like, I do. I mean, my dad was a BQ, but you know, and so then your reward is, you know, if you get to your junior year in the band, you academically stay in the core, and, you know, just going through, and the band units are the toughest units. They're the best units in the core. They really hold the highest standards. So if you make it to your junior year, your reward is to be a part of that white belt band.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost also serves in an incentive. Like, dude, you're going to get to away games.
You know what I keep waiting on, though, from the Aggie band that I've yet to see? It's probably out there, and I just haven't found it. I want someone to wear a GoPro when they do the 4-way cross routine. Like, I want that have to.
Okay, so there is one online. It is during practice when they were on the practice field.
Mm-hmm.
But there is one online that you can find. And
is that from like 12 years ago when they were back on that? Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah, the old practice field. It make you dizzy, but
yeah.
No, you're never going to have anybody in the Aggie band with a GoPro on, because like they stuck it on McGinty for one game,
mm-hmm.
and I thought it was hilarious because they gave it to us, and of course Crawford looks at the juniors. He's like, all right, guess who's wearing it? And I looked at Pat. And I said, I'm older than you, Pat. Enjoy the GoPro. But the leadership of the band would never allow that.
Yeah.
If one person was just completely out of uniform like that, Colonel Ray would freak, or Dr. Ray would. And rightfully so. Like, I'm fine with it. Don't get me wrong. But
well, speaking of music, that's actually a perfect segue into. I promised Rob we'd touch on Texas music a little bit. So last time I saw Rob, which was like 2 weeks ago when we were in Belton, and they had just kicked off the Texas Music Life poll on Twitter, and Roy, I don't know if you saw this. They had a 140, almost said team, artist and band bracket, and I
voted in a lot of that.
Awesome. Well, I was one of the, like, in the qualifier round where, it's like the little Baptist and Catholic schools that want a chance to play Kansas or Kentucky.
Oh, yeah. Weren't you in, like, a terrible play-in game seating or something like that?
Yeah. And I looked at who was in it, and I'm very good friends with two of the other three. And I was like, oh, this sucks. So we were actually texting each other.
Didn't you get put up against, like, George Strait or something
Granger
ridiculous?
Smith.
He got Garrett Smith, and Garrett got Granger Smith in the first round.
Yeah, it was. I shouldn't have gotten past the qualifier. I was in there with Cross, Rags, and Young, and I'm like, okay, if Grady Cross or Randy Ragsdale see this and they tweet it out, I'm done. Well, I don't think they ever had a clue that it was going on, so I ended up sneaking into the first round. Yeah. And then I was like, okay, I'm with Granger Smith. If people just go too quickly and they tap the wrong G Smith, I've got a shot at this thing. And I took a third of the vote. I will take that butt kicking with honor. It was not bad.
It's all right. We ended up getting stuck with Pat Green.
Yeah.
So that's all right.
Hey, to be fair, if someone listens to Jordan Nix and listens to Pat Green and doesn't know the song, they might confuse which one is singing.
Sorry, Jordan. He hates that comparison, by the way, Roy.
I know.
Some people say that he kind of sounds like him, and he's like,
I don't think he does.
Telling me that.
I don't think he does.
I think it depends on the song.
I've seen Pat live. I've had all the Pat CDs. I don't think he sounds like Pat.
Pat is a second cousin of my dad's, and I'm like, I'm sitting here, I'm like, I haven't even thought to reach out and get him on here yet. So y'all made it on here before Pat Green, so that y'all are in the honor zone here.
I saw Pat Green when I was a recruiter in San Diego.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he came to the House of Blues in San Diego, and we went to the show, and it was a ton of fun, man. He was having a good time. And I'll put it this way, like, it's at one point during the show, everybody there figured out what color boxers he was wearing. he was playing. He just dropped his jeans, and everybody's just like, "What the hell?" Like awesome. He wasn't missing a beat either. Like he was just like shifting chords on the guitar, and just the belt comes out, and he keeps playing and singing. And we're just like, I'm not really. This doesn't even apply to the song he's singing. What the hell's going on right now?
Hey, if that's what rockets you to success, I'll have to keep that in mind for when the bars eventually open and I can play again.
Well, this is when, like, I guess that would have been like when Wave on Wave had just come out.
Oh,
maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was cool though. Like, it was the San Diego House of Blues, but they brought in Lone Star and they brought in Shiner, and it was a really good time. We hung out afterwards, and I talked to the band. I mean, I'd never met any of those guys. I'm not in the Texas music industry.
It's a rough field. Don't jump in.
No, I'm good. I'm also not on the verge of it, so you're good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. They might be trying to thin us out here over the next few weeks, but I won't go down that rabbit hole either.
That's honestly, that's what it feels like.
It does. I was lucky enough to get 2 shows squeezed in there between the first and second lockdown, and they went okay, but God.
Our first 2 shows were supposed to be this weekend.
No.
I know. We were ready to go.
I put together 2 side bands too. I had one with some guys from Corpus and Houston, and another one with Jared Johnson and AJ Gell. We were like, hey, let's just super group this thing so that everyone's trying to get gigs. Let's condense, because if more artists condensed, like, okay, I'm not gonna, and this may trigger some people out there, I'm not paying $15 to go see Parker McCollum or Co Wetzler or any of those guys or whatever. Like, if they were all in one band together though, instead of getting all the gigs, they were just one band getting 1 gig at a time, I would probably go see it just to see what the show was like, And I'm not saying I wouldn't go to a show necessarily. I'm not wanting to.
Or if they play bill together, man, you pay $25 to see all 3 of them.
Yeah.
Individually. Mm-hmm. Like if they ran 3 sets. Absolutely. No, Rob, you and I have talked about this. Some of the great like rock bands that were just these conglomeration of superstars that put together these bands. Mm-hmm. And I'll say this, and I'm obviously not as deep into the music industry as you guys are, and Chris Stapleton is one of the most phenomenally unique and awesome talents I have ever seen, or I love his voice.
Because he's actually country.
Yeah, well, he's almost more bluegrass than he is country, like old school Kentucky bluegrass. But, and I might get crucified for this, I like the Steel Drivers better than I like him by himself.
Makes sense.
That's fair.
I love the Steel Drivers, and he's phenomenal. Look, he's the kind of guy that he can do the George Strait. He could just stand on a stage with a microphone, a guitar, and a spotlight and kill it. I mean, I love the Steel Drivers. I wish he would still just dabble enough to put out albums with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't like when an artist completely leaves a project behind. I think you can still maintain. Look at me.
Both.
I started these side bands so that I could play bass guitar. I like doing that more than I like singing. But I was like, okay, I can still do my songs. Yeah, I can sing it. There are about 5 of my songs I can sing while playing bass guitar. The rest of them, the rhythm gets screwed up. But I was like, okay, if we super group, I can play bass on y'all's songs. I can do a few of mine. We promote each other, build each other's fan bases. So we may still do that online, and I'm hoping so. We'll send you the link. We may do what Post Malone did when he played the Nirvana show. Wearing a dress with Travis Barker and whoever else, but
that's crazy.
It was a trip.
Well, and like you said, there's just no reason to leave it behind, because if Stapleton had hauled off and gone to sing gospel, I get it, but he's literally in the exact same genre, singing incredibly similar sounding music.
Yeah.
So it's not like you even have to flip a switch to go back.
Right. Yeah, we may have to record this and send it to Cody Canada, because I'm getting some strong vibes on my opinion there as well, but totally different.
Oh, yeah.
Totally different history.
Since he departed.
Departed. Well, I was actually going to go see Cross Rags and Young before all this.
Do that one more time and I'm hanging up.
I'm going to have another soundbite just for that. Yeah, I don't know. There was actually an Aggie music Twitter beef the other day, I noticed.
I must have missed that. What happened?
The association had a A&M graduation party.
That was the Jamie Lynn Young thing, right?
Jamie Lynn Wilson, yeah.
Wilson.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
They had all these Aggie grads lined up. And so they had Rich O'Toole, Roger Krager, probably Robert O'Kane. I don't know who else
was in there.
The usual, yeah. Then Bree Bagwell was on there. And she went to Texas.
Oh, yeah.
And so Jamie Lynn Wilson, who went to A&M, sees it and kind of like low-key, not low-key, snarky tweeted it. And the next day, she was invited into the lineup. So it was kind of a, I don't know.
We'll let that be a lesson to you. The way you change the world is by snarky tweeting.
Snarky tweeting.
Clearly.
That's what we're going to do to make change.
Yep.
I've only met Jamie once. She was actually really sweet. So if she hears this, I'm not dogging on her. I laughed at the whole thing. But I got the laughs on me whenever the association tweeted a bunch of Aggie artists, and I was in there, and they were like, "Hey, do the muster video." I was like, "Oh, cool. I better do it," because I was super busy. But I was like, if I'm included in this, I'm not gonna just like not do this muster video with all these other guys. I was the only one on the Twitter list that was in the video, and I looked so awkward when he filmed it, but whatever. It happens. Well, one thing I do on these podcasts is I kind of have like a big 3 finale questions, and they're usually more musician based, but I have the music ones for Rob, and I have a couple for Roy that I'm curious on. And
I was gonna say I can try and chime in on the music stuff.
You might be actually. You know what? These would probably apply to both of y'all.
Maybe this will nip is the Big 6.
There we go, the Big 6. If you could collaborate with anyone musically, who would it be?
Oof. Collaborate with anybody. Now, is this strictly within the bounds of Texas, or is this anywhere, anytime?
Anyone with a pulse currently.
Anybody with a pulse currently. Okay, sorry.
Well, that rules out a lot of musicians, you jerk.
Oh, man. Oh, man, if I had to... Okay, I'll give you one. One of my favorite bands of all time is a band called Red. Absolutely love Red. And if I could play with those guys... I mean, granted, the two brothers, one of which plays bass, they've been there since the beginning. But that would be a band that musically, stylistically, I absolutely love. I would happily go play with those guys. Absolutely fantastic. Within the bounds of Texas, I would say of the folks that I've interacted with in various different bands and seeing how their camps work, I would say, honestly, one of my favorite groups of people, William Clark Green.
Oh,
William Clark Green's group. I mean, they're real good. He's a great songwriter, great singer. I mean, if I could get on a train, because that's a train that's going, I mean, that would be a great opportunity. It's not going to happen, but I would love to play with him.
I've heard he's a fun guy, too, because on episode 5, I had Jonathan Sines from Flatland, and he was talking about the prank war they had on each other's buses, and they loaded up William Clark Green's bus with like 300 ice bottles. And, I mean, they said they were in their showers, their cases, just everything, and took it well. Yeah, if you could headline any venue...
Headline any venue. Well, I think one of the big ones you obviously want to get anywhere down here, if I could do it with Jordan and crew. I mean, I would absolutely love to play a Green Hall at some point. I think in like headline a Green Hall, we had the following to do it.
Yeah.
Obviously that's a given. But if I could play Green Hall, I think that would kind of round out my Texas aspirations to an extent.
Would you rather headline at Green Hall or be third to last at the Willie Nelson family picnic?
Ooh.
Probably headline Green Hall.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I like Willie Nelson, and that's good exposure. But
if I got to hang out with Willie,
I've always
that'd
had
be
an
cool.
affinity for Green Hall.
No, everything comes with that. You get to hang out with Willie. You get to hang out with the other massive stars he brings on.
Yeah. If we hang out with Willie, certain things are happening that I won't talk about on the podcast. But no, actually, that would be really cool if we could, though. For sure.
Heck, I'd play Green Hall without the following. I'd play for 3 people.
Dude, I don't smoke, but if I hung out with Willie, I would go like 1 for 1. Like for every joint he smoked, like I would drink a beer, and I still think he'd outlast me.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Willie Nelson is the case for medical marijuana. Like, you don't even have to do a study. He's right there.
Willie Nelson is pretty much made of marijuana at this point.
It's true.
We'll be saying the same thing about Snoop Dogg when he's 136.
Dude, when you make Snoop cough and Snoop can't deal with what you're smoking, like, you are straight up getting your weed from aliens.
I've told people before that if I had to highlight a venue or headline, I've always said Chili Fest would be awesome, but I'm thinking about, I would love to be a band that's big enough to play after Midnight Yell. Now, granted, everyone's clearing out to go to Northgate, but that'd be a pretty cool spot.
Maybe
just to do like 4 songs.
What about First Yell? What about First Yell?
Would be cool.
It'd be awesome too, yeah. It'd be legit. And then the big one I always ask people, this one applies to what both of y'all... Actually, before I ask the big question, I got to ask Roy, if other universities had yell leaders and you had to go do a couple of years as a yell leader at another university, where would you go?
Wow. I think it probably goes back to what I was talking about, the best places. It'd probably be a place like Auburn. Or maybe Florida. I bet you it'd be fun at Florida in the swamp.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I got hosed on all my SEC East rotation games, so...
So you went to South Carolina?
Missouri twice.
Oh, that doesn't even count.
Yeah, South Carolina to open the SEC network. Where the hell did we go? Vandy?
Oh.
Well, let's see that. Well,
I don't even know.
Yeah,
dude.
we went to Vandy that next year, I think.
The East is so doo-doo. I can't even tell you. I didn't get to go to the swamp. I didn't get to go between the hedges. I didn't get to go to Nayland, so I don't really care.
Oh. Now, I did a walking tour of the swamp one summer. Felt like a swamp. It was awesome. Like, I looked at it, I was like, I'd love to come here when it's full.
Oh, yeah, well, I'll tell you another cool place to go if you're not, if you're not playing there, but a place that's really cool to go to a game. It's Clemson.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I bet.
Ooh, you know what another one I want to go to is Virginia Tech. I've not been to a night.
VT?
I need to go to a night game.
Night game at VT.
At Virginia Tech.
Honestly, Virginia Tech and ECU are my 2 expansion choices if I were the ruler of the world for the SEC. And people are like, East Carolina sucks. I'm like, well, the East sucks. That's where they'd be. And their fans are about as Southern and tradition-based and crazy as it gets. So,
well, they're a great baseball fan base, too.
True.
And Virginia Tech's a great ad because all of a sudden you've created a kind of fun potential cross-division rival with Virginia Tech and A&M.
Yep.
Both core cadets, both.
We'd have to give up that Bonham trophy.
I mean, well, and you talk about.
They can have it.
Yeah. And, I'm like, this is just kind of throwing it out there, but, something maybe call it the Core Classic, just like it's, because they both have core cadets.
Well, the grand finale question, Rob, this is kind of aimed at your music career, but Roy, this could go towards. Well, I would say military career, but I guarantee you cannot answer this one if I say military. Yell leader, career, whatever, but craziest or funniest experience you can tell us.
Oh, craziest or funnest experience.
Well, you better go first, Rob, because I got about 30,000 more trips around the sun than you do. So let me think about this.
You're good. Oh man, from a musician standpoint, oh god, probably when I passed a kidney stone before we went and played in Corpus.
No.
Oh yeah, it was so funny. Like, I kid you not, we were getting ready to play. It was like a small party for an anniversary in Corpus Christi. We're at the hotel beforehand. We went and ate dinner, and I was trying to, do my business, and for whatever reason, everything was just painful. It sucked. I was like, God, this is awful. We get to the venue, I'm setting up, and I'm just like keeled over, and I'm thinking, what the heck's going on here? And it just, eventually, I remembered that I passed one when I was in 8th grade, so not good. But I had this, and I remember the pain, and I thought to myself, okay, I need to get over to this, there's an urgent care thing, like right down the road. Let's go there really quick. So Jordan, Robert, and Dane, our drummer, we actually, those 3 played the first set together. And I went over to the urgent care, went in, because they said, the urine sample, right? And at that point, when I went to do the urine sample, I guess I passed it then because all of a sudden I had flow, whatever. We're getting off topic, but still, it was so funny. It came back around, and they looked at me and said, well, judging from what we can see, we don't see anything there. We can tell there's blood, but everything else looks good. We think you passed a small one. And then I turned around and went and played the show.
Wow.
Because I'm dedicated.
I'm just glad you didn't pass it during the show.
No, it was awful. It sucked. But you know what? It's a fun story, and you know, Jordan makes it a point whenever we go places. He said, "I want people that are as dedicated as my bass player to come back and play after he passes a kidney stone or comes on stage." So yeah, that was probably the worst. Probably one of the wildest things that's happened to me before a show.
Jeez. Yeah, that's hard to top.
It sucked, but that's all right.
Awesome. Roy looks deep in thought.
Man, I'm just sitting here trying to think.
I'll give you an easy one right before that. What should people order from Good Bull Barbecue?
I don't know. The doors are closed.
When it's
tacos, man. Barbecue tacos, dude. If you don't eat the Big Mac, you're not eating right. Dude, I'm just trying to sift through all these things and try to figure out what statute of limitations have run out. Some of the craziest stories are just some of the simplest ones. You know, it's when we got together, we got back from deployment, and you know, the whole unit doesn't come back all at once, so it kind of staggers back. And then the whole unit came back, and we had we decided to not do block leave before Thanksgiving, so that way we wouldn't have to be back for Christmas. So we got Thanksgiving, but then we had to come back for a couple of weeks before you always get 30 days of block leave after leave. And we had, and our platoon was real tight, man. It's just kind of how that happens. And we set up a party over at our house. We were living in Hope Mills, which is like 20 minutes from the gates. And we set up a party, and we set up like a pre-Thanksgiving Thanksgiving for our unit. And it was almost like a potluck Thanksgiving. It was really awesome. And the lieutenant shows up, and we put in charge of beer. We're like, just go get a keg or two. And it was like 25 of us, and you're talking, you might need 2 kegs. You get the AA for, you know, 82nd All-American, 82nd Airborne. No. The other AA is what it stands for. But he shows up, and I remember he showed up with like Amber Brown or Amber Bach, and we're just like, you're a terrible human. But it ended up, so we had a deep fried turkey, we had an oven turkey. I remember, we partied the night before, and then we did Thanksgiving, you know, the next day. I came down, and a buddy of mine, we had a bonus room, all kinds of rooms, so everybody's kind of crashed at the house. I come down, and he lived in the barracks, but he was an older dude, but he volunteered to do the green bean casserole. And I come down, and he's in the kitchen, and he's like, he's stirring it, and he looks like he wants to die. Like we stayed out till like 6:30 in the morning drinking. This is like 9:30. I come down, he's back at it making green bean casserole. It's just the most miserable human ever. But that probably wasn't the craziest experience, but it was like one of the most memorable things. We actually all sat down and had Thanksgiving dinner, and you know, we watched football. It was almost like a family, but they were like, you know, 35 of us, 40 by the time it came to eating. And yeah, the crazy stories, y'all don't probably really get to hear those.
It's all right.
I will say one time as a yell leader, I definitely barely made the return flight the next morning.
Oh.
Yeah, I found some bars that were open kind of late, like all the way late. And then we used to fly out at like 6:15 and 6:30 in the morning, so we were leaving the hotel at 4:30.
Jeez.
Yeah, and I rolled up. I rolled up to the hotel in a cab, and the dudes had already packed up my stuff and like had the bags downstairs. I rolled up, and Gerald, our advisor, looked at me. He's like, "What the hell?" And I was like, "I'm good. We can leave now." And like I straight up got out of one cab and into a rental car and went to the airport.
Oh.
And thankfully, we always had you know, like uniform, kind of what we wore, like blazers and stuff that we wore, you know, when we went to games. But coming home, we didn't care, which is good because I look like trash, smell like a brewery.
Are we allowed to know where you almost got stranded?
No.
Okay. It's like, what does it rhyme with?
Rhymes with none of your business.
All right. We can live with that.
All right, so we'll just assume it rhymed with Rettenbouge and no.
Hey, well, I had a real good time when we stayed in LSU though, because we were right across from the Harrah's.
Ooh.
Yeah, and the wife came, and so the other guys kind of buddied up in another room. They let me use have our own room, and so that was nice of them. So we didn't have to buy another hotel room, that was a lot of fun. Man, Midnight Yell on a balcony on Bourbon Street. Nothing. There's just nothing like it.
That's amazing.
It was.
That's awesome. Well, y'all, my timer says that if I run out and keep trying to book meetings, Zoom is going to make me subscribe for $14.99 a month or whatever. So
sounds like a hard pass.
Hard pass. Shout out to Zoom for sponsoring tonight's episode, whether they know it or not. Y'all check out the Jordan Knicks Band. Check out Good Bull Barbecue. Check out the RedAss Podcast, Facebook, Twitter, Spotify, all the good stuff.
Check out the store. The link for our store is on our podcast tweets.
Yep.
There you go.
At the top. Come check it out.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing you guys again whenever all this stuff rolls up, and whether it's at Kyle Field or Olsen, it'll be sometime in the hopefully near future. So y'all keep staying safe, and I appreciate y'all doing this. This is a blast.
Yeah, thanks for having us on, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Take care, buddy. We appreciate it.
Thanks again,
brother. All right, gig 'em.